People Food Editor and a self-taught baker, and welcome back to another episode of Common Cakes. Today we're going to make an Oreo rosette cake. Rosette cakes are a huge trend on Instagram, even some bakeries do it, and they look really pretty. Today I'm going to put a little twist on it by using different amounts of Oreo crumbs to get an ombre effect. It's going to look really cool. While I'm in quarantine and baking a ton, I've been donating all of my cakes to local hospitals and essential workers. I'm gonna donate this cake to a good friend of mine who works at a hospital. All you need is one piping tip, either a 1M or a 2D. You don't need both, but either one will do. Right here I have 3 cake layers that I baked from a box mix. I was not in the mood to bake from scratch, and a cake mix is just as delicious, honestly. I used this one, they're gonna put it right here, I think. I used a 6-inch pan for these and did it in 3 layers, but you could do 8-inch or 9-inch or whatever you have at home. I used my Oreo buttercream recipe. Here it is. I'm gonna make the Oreo buttercream recipe now, and then I'll show you that rosette technique. Now that we have our basic buttercream base, we're gonna add our Oreos. I like to do it in the blender. I'm just gonna pop them in there and turn the blender on. This is about 2 sleeves of Oreos. Now we're gonna add it to our buttercream 1/3 cup at a time. You can always add more, so start with just a little bit. Set the rest of the crumbs out of the way because we're gonna use them again later. This looks good, and now we're going to frost our cake. Just put a little bit of frosting onto your cake board so that the cake doesn't slide around. Give it a second to firm up. Now we're gonna use the lightest color of Oreo buttercream as the crumb coat and as the frosting between the layers of cakes. So I'm just gonna scoop 1½ scoops onto my cake and smooth it out. And then add 1 more cake layer. I just got frosting on my head. And for our final cake layer, you want to always turn it around so you're using the bottom so that it creates a nice flat top. Now I'm going to add more frosting to the top and sides of the cake. Once it looks sufficiently covered, you're going to use a bench scraper to smooth the sides out. To make a nice sharp edge, I'm just going to hold my offset spatula on top of the cake level and then slide it inside while I turn the cake table. Now I'm gonna put this in the fridge for about 30 minutes so it can firm up before we add those beautiful roses. While our cake is in the fridge, we're gonna get our piping bag ready. So I have a piping bag here, and that 1M tip I mentioned, you could also use 2D if you have it. And just snip off the corner, and then put it in the biggest cup you have. Just like that. Now I'm using my ice cream scoop again to just pop it in here. Okay, I'm gonna get our cake out of the fridge and then I'll show you how to start piping. To make our roses, you're gonna make 1 swirl counterclockwise. And to get it to stay on the cake, you just wanna press it kind of hard in the beginning. So like press it into the cake and then taper it off. And we're just gonna do that, and they're gonna overlap a little each time you do a swirl. For that last one, just do a lower tail so you can't really see the end of it. And that's our first row. Now we're gonna add another 1/3 cup of Oreo crumbs to our buttercream so it gets a nice darker color. Put the mixer on low and then we'll add the crumbs. Now as you add the crumbs gradually, the buttercream might get a little stiffer, so you can just offset that with a little more heavy cream. So I'm just gonna add 1 or 2 more tablespoons. That looks good. Now we're gonna add this darker shade back into our piping bag and do the same thing all over again. Now for our next layer, you're gonna do the same thing, but you're just gonna do it in between each rose on the bottom layer. Okay, I know it looks like we only have room for 1 more row, but we're actually gonna do 2 so that there's a little bit of overlap on that edge of the cake. And then we'll fill in the top. Okay, so here we go. 1 more 1/3 cup. Our next shade looks good, so we're just gonna do the same thing all over again. Okay, now do the same thing 1 more time. Another 1/3 cup of crumbs. This is our last and final. Don't spill it everywhere like me. It might not look like we have enough room for another row, but we want it to overlap the top a little bit. Now we'll do the top, do the same thing, going around in a circle. Okay, we're finished with our Oreo buttercream. I have a little bit left, but you can just save it in the freezer for up to 3 months or in the fridge for up to a week. Now you could leave the cake just like this. This is how a lot of places do it, but I like to add 1 more step that just takes it over the edge. This is totally optional. I dyed a little bit of my frosting green and I put it in a piping bag with a tip 352. This is a leaf tip, so I'm just gonna add a few leaves around where I see a few little holes. You hold the tip vertically and then just slowly taper out till it looks like a leaf. Just like that. And there you have it, an Oreo ombre rosette cake. Isn't she charming? Thanks for baking with me.
Thank you.